On this Friday night, the UN's top court orders Israel to stop its Rafah offensive now. Israel's response as the suffering in Gaza just gets worse. A potential strike for border workers.
Members are angry.
When they might walk off the job as the summer travel season approaches. Backlash. The indigenous community reacts to the RCMP's new dress uniform option. Altered news clips in a conservative MP's video. The concerns about disinformation and his response. Plus, Wheel of Misfortune.
I apologize, Pat. I was a little excited.
The game show contestant who became the butt of the joke.
Global National with Farah Nasser.
Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. It has been a week filled with legal and diplomatic blows for Israel over its treatment of Palestinians in Gaza. From 3 European countries taking symbolic steps to recognize a Palestinian state, to the International Criminal Court announcing it's seeking arrest warrants against Israel's Prime Minister and Defense Minister, and now a ruling from the UN's top court.
In conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive.
The International Court of Justice ordering Israel to stop its Rafah offensive today, warning it could make the disastrous humanitarian situation there even worse. Experts say together this week's ICC and ICJ decisions are a legal 1-2 punch to the country and its leadership. Our Europe Bureau Chief Crystal Goomansingh begins tonight with Israel's reaction to the mounting external pressure as it slips further into international isolation.
Conditions in Rafah have deteriorated to levels now categorized as disastrous by the president of the International Court of Justice. In an effort to protect civilians, the ICJ sided with South Africa, issuing an order for Israel to halt military operations in Rafah, maintain the opening of the border crossing there, and
to ensure the unimpeded access to the Gaza Strip of any commission of inquiry, fact-finding mission, or other investigative body.
Those UN bodies would be probing the larger issue of genocide, which is at the heart of the original complaint brought forward by South Africa last year. While a full military withdrawal from Gaza was not ordered, Friday's ruling is seen as groundbreaking.
It is the first time that explicit mention is made for Israel to halt its military action in any area of Gaza.
The news left many Israelis bewildered.
It's not really connected to the reality. We need to go into Rafah.
Thinking that, we're there in order to harm innocent people is just completely false.
The court was not satisfied that Israel has sufficiently mitigated risks to the population fleeing Rafah.
What has been very positive is the way starvation is being discussed across the board.
This legal advisor specializes in crimes of starvation. In conflict, she says it's not new, but it is finally being recognized in legal proceedings.
To signal a change in the way starvation is being viewed as not only an inevitable consequence of war or a byproduct of war, but as deliberate strategy.
At this point, it does not sound as if Israel will halt operations. The government issued a statement saying, in part, Israel has not and will not conduct military actions in the Rafah area, which may inflict on the Palestinian civilian population in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. ICJ rulings are legally binding, but not enforceable. Farah?
Crystal Goomansingh in London. Thank you, Crystal. The Genocide Convention was adopted by the UN in 1948, the same year Israel was founded in the aftermath of the Second World War and the murder of about 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. The world united around the now familiar phrase, never again. Since then, it has been invoked to level charges from the Bosnian War to the killing of the Rohingya community in Myanmar, both sides of the war in Ukraine, and now South Africa's genocide allegations of the specific intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza against Israel, the very state that was founded out of the same tragedy. Israel says it has recovered the bodies of 3 more hostages in Gaza, and it's warned it will not stop fighting for people still being held there.
There are men, women,
children, and babies being held by Hamas in living hell across our border in Gaza. We will not stop fighting for their freedom.
Israel's military says 3 bodies were recovered in an overnight operation in northern Gaza. The army says they were killed the day of the Hamas attack on October 7th. The truck driver who caused the deadly Humboldt Broncos bus crash in Saskatchewan in April of 2018 has been ordered to be deported. Jaskirat Singh Sidhu was sentenced to 8 years in prison after pleading guilty to causing the crash that killed 16 people and injured 13 others. Sidhu, an Indian national, has permanent resident status in Canada. His lawyer had called the deportation decision a foregone conclusion because he's not a Canadian and committed a serious crime. However, he says the process could still take months, if not years. Thousands of workers at Canada Border Services Agency are threatening job action. The union representing members across Canada has secured an overwhelming strike mandate. As Mackenzie Gray reports, it is warning people they could see significant disruptions during a busy travel season.
It's setting up to be another treacherous travel summer, with CBSA workers potentially buckling up for a strike.
Members are angry. Our members are very angry, as we can see from the 96% strike mandate.
2 years after the last CBSA contract expired, the union representing 9,000 border workers says they want higher wages, new rules around remote work, and a better retirement plan.
Our members take great pride in the work that they do. They're there to keep Canadians safe. They work terribly understaffed, working incredible amounts of overtime as well.
The last CBSA strike, August 2021, causing major delays at borders and airports, something the head of Canada's largest public sector union has already promised could happen again this summer.
The Trudeau Liberal government has to be prepared for a summer of discontent, whatever that looks like, whether it's at the borders, whether it's at the airports.
Chris Alward threatened to wreck summer after the federal government ordered civil servants back to the office an additional day, from 2 days a week to 3. A core issue during last spring's public servant strike, one that the union didn't get into the collective agreement.
It's actually considered a management right to determine the place of work. In this round of bargaining, it's not surprising that it's emerged as a pressing issue for these members as well.
6,000 CBSA workers are deemed essential and aren't able to strike, making it unlikely the Liberals are willing to change their telework policy, calling the CBSA strike threat unnecessary.
The best labour agreements happen at the bargaining table, and that's exactly where the ministers are focused.
15 different unions have called on NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to hold the government accountable through their supply and confidence deal over the work-from-home policy, but Singh isn't ready to force an election over it.
Well, we're not at that point yet, and right now we're going to focus on using the pressure that we can to get the government to do the right thing.
The Treasury Board says it's ready to negotiate at any time, but the unions countered, saying it hasn't even got a wage offer yet, Farah, and they'll be in a legal strike position by no later than June 10th.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks for the update, Mackenzie. At the University of Toronto, the deadline's now passed for pro-Palestinian demonstrators to accept the university's final offer in response to their demands. Protesters have now been issued a trespass notice. They now have until Monday morning to leave. Protest organizers called the school's terms outrageous, criticizing the negotiating tactics as an ultimatum. The proposal invites them to discuss their concerns with the university's Business Board of Governing Council, but it declines demands to divest from Israeli companies or end partnerships with Israeli universities. Ontario is accelerating plans to expand where alcohol can be bought. Today, Premier Doug Ford announced a multi-stage plan that will see alcohol sold in corner stores, along with a wider selection in grocery stores by this fall.
People are excited they're going to enjoy the same choice and convenience as other Canadians and other people right across the world.
Starting August 1st, Ontarians can find products like wine coolers and 30-pack cases of beer in grocery stores. Then after September 4th, they can buy beer, cider, and wine at eligible convenience stores, a goal initially promised by 2026. Big box stores will also begin sales after October 31st. New Democrats say they're planning to ask the House of Commons Ethics Committee to include a video by a Conservative MP as part of an ongoing study into the impact of disinformation on Canadian politics. Manitoba MP Brandon Leslie distributed a video on his social media accounts with the title, "Breaking News, Trudeau Resigns." It contains doctored television news clips mixed with real and out-of-context news. As David Aiken reports, experts say it pushes the boundaries of political messaging.
This video never aired on CTV News Channel, and this video never aired on CBC News. The scenes are a fiction created for Conservative Member of Parliament Brandon Leslie.
Over the coming weeks, the Liberal Laurentian elites, they choose their next leader.
They were part of a 4-minute video Leslie released criticizing Justin Trudeau's record in office, and that's fair game. But experts say the technique he used to do that, mixing real footage from newscasts by Global, CBC, and CTV with out-of-context news and what amounts to fake news, is a problem.
It's obviously taking the work that journalists do and using the model and the formats that journalists use to try to spread things that aren't true.
This is the first instance of this sort of content that I've seen produced or published by a member of Parliament in Canada. I've not seen anything like this before. It's pushing the boundaries.
Leslie shrugged off concerns that the doctored images might be mistaken for real news.
I don't think anybody thinks that I'm the guy that's going to break the news that the Prime Minister has resigned. I think Canadians are very smart.
New Democrats take a different view.
It ought to be absolutely unacceptable, and there should be an ethical consensus amongst parties that we will not partake in this type of misinformation and disinformation.
Matthew Green is a member of the House of Commons Ethics Committee, which is currently studying political disinformation and misinformation.
I would call on this MP to delete it and apologize.
As for the broadcasters, CTV said it was concerned about misuse of its logos and branding, while CBC said it has detected a, quote, alarming trend of false ads and news stories. Farah.
David Aiken in Ottawa. Thank you, David. A change to the RCMP dress code sparks anger. Coming up, the reaction of the addition of Indigenous ribbon skirts. Ever since 1990, when Baltej Singh Dhillon won the right to wear a turban while on duty, the RCMP has, on occasion, adjusted its uniform regulations to reflect cultural and religious diversity in the ranks. The latest addition, a ribbon skirt. It's now part of the ceremonial uniform options for Indigenous officers who identify as women or Two-Spirit people. Public reaction to the change is largely negative. Melissa Ridgen explains why.
It was a soft launch on the RCMP's social media Thursday. Ribbon skirts, a symbol of resilience and survival of First Nations women, now a part of the dress uniform options available to RCMP officers, along with the eagle feather and Métis sash.
Right away, immediately, it's a no from me.
Nakota Sioux TikToker and activist Kyron Potts summarizing the wave of reaction.
Upon me seeing it, I was immediately turned off. I was like, oof. And I tried to unpack, well, why did I immediately feel oof when I saw that? And a big part of it is the historical and ongoing trauma.
Social media flooded with hard no's from Indigenous folks, except on the RCMP's own social media pages.
Funny enough, the comments were turned off when it was posted. Maybe they foresaw some issues or didn't want to deal with some of the backlash that they knew that they were going to get.
Many felt the announcement didn't consider the police force's dark history with Indigenous people, from hanging Métis leader Louis Riel in 1885 to the forced relocation of Inuit families to the high Arctic to act as human flagpoles for Canada during the Cold War, and the forcible removal of First Nations children from their homes to residential schools. Inspector Kim Mueller is Cree and, along with other Indigenous women officers, worked for years to have the regalia added to the dress code.
Some of the, social media coverage, interviews I've seen so far make assumptions about where this is coming from, and that it's a colonial organization taking something sacred, and agree to disagree. I am a First Nations woman who is a proud police officer, and my elders, my family, my community are also proud of that. And this is a way to celebrate people like me within the RCMP.
In the end, it will be up to the RCMP's 300 officers who identify as Indigenous women or Two-Spirits, whether they wear the ribbon skirt as part of their dress uniform or keep their culture and career attire separate. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
In Vancouver, lots of angry soccer fans after learning superstar Lionel Messi won't be playing in a much-typed game against the Whitecaps on Saturday.
It was a bit of a gut punch. I mean, we love the Whitecaps.
Yeah.
We've been to many of their games, but this one specifically was to go and see Messi.
Darren Ross and his family spent nearly $3,000 on tickets in a hotel to watch Messi. And the BC family is not alone. More than 50,000 soccer fans bought tickets to watch Inter Miami take on the Whitecaps. Two other top Miami players, Luis Suarez and Sergio Busquets, will also be missing from the lineup. Does Putin want to halt his war on Ukraine? Ahead, the skepticism over insider info, allegedly from within the Kremlin. To Russia's war with Ukraine. Transparency is not something you would expect from the Kremlin. But tonight, four anonymous sources, apparently close to Russian President Vladimir Putin, say he is willing to end his war if Russia is allowed to keep the territories it now controls in Ukraine. The big question is whether the messages are real. Mike Armstrong reports.
There was no confirmation, but also no denial. Vladimir Putin, visiting one of his few allies Friday, Belarus, said there is a need for peace talks with Ukraine. But he added that they should reflect realities on the ground. What that likely refers to are the front lines in eastern Ukraine. According to a Reuters report, four sources close to Putin say he is willing to, quote, freeze the war. That would be on the condition he keeps what his troops have taken. Right now, Russia controls about 18% of Ukrainian territory. It is fighting to take more. Now, the first question about this potential Putin proposal is whether it's real. Well, a report citing multiple Kremlin sources, even anonymously, isn't likely to have come out of the Kremlin without Putin's approval. The University of Toronto's Oral Braun.
It's highly unlikely. This is a Putin's regime. It is very tightly controlled.
The other question is motivation. The proposal could be a trial balloon to feel things out. It could also be a way of putting pressure on Ukraine and the West to play on growing fatigue with the war. But an agreement at this point would leave Russia isolated and impoverished, and Putin with perhaps only one accomplishment.
If Vladimir Putin is focused only on one thing, that is staying in power and protecting absolute power, then he has been successful.
The Ukrainian president, in his weekly statement Friday, said Putin is trying to disrupt an upcoming peace summit any way he can. About 70 countries are set to meet next month in Switzerland. That will include Prime Minister Trudeau. China has been invited. Russia has not. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
There's a frantic search for survivors in a remote part of Papua New Guinea after a terrifying overnight landslide. The entire side of the mountain came down at 3 in the morning, burying hundreds of villagers under rock and debris as they slept. At least 100 people are dead, and there are fears of many more. Next, the Wheel of Fortune guess that's got everyone giggling. Sad news today for dog and internet meme lovers alike. Kabosu, the face of the popular online Doge meme, has died. The female Shiba Inu's owner says Kabosu fell into deep sleep and quietly passed away in her owner's arms. She was suffering from cancer and liver disease. Kabosu was adopted in 2008 from a puppy mill. Then in 2010, she hit stardom online when this photo of her expression went viral. It led to a constant stream of goofy internet memes over the last 14 years. Kabosu was 18 years old. You know, you never know what might go viral, but an answer on Wheel of Fortune last night had all the right tidbits to trend. Not only was it wildly wrong, it was also a little bit lewd. Mike Drolet explains.
Tavares, right in the butt.
What? Look at his face. No. He knew right away that he messed up. The real answer is, of course, family friendly.
This is the best.
But come on, game shows are designed for these moments. Where else would you yell something like this?
Naked grandma!
Naked, huh?
Do you ever feel bad for them?
No, because my job is to entertain, and I hope I want to mess up.
If that makes Ontario-based comedian Timmy Boyle a bad person, well, then he's a bad person, just like the rest of us. Because when he's hosting his own game show experience, unpredictability is his fuel.
Oh, you also hit her in the nose with the mic. That was pretty impressive.
Nothing is ever scripted or expected. The Raunchy Ladies Only Church group was a surprise, as were the 10-year-old murder enthusiasts.
The kids were like, you gotta clean up the blood. I'm like, wow, like these kids know about murders. Like, that's a red flag right now, I think. This is a little concerning.
Concerning? Sure. But who's to say what will happen under the big lights?
You can talk into it, and now it works.
Can you repeat the question?
No, I can't. Boom.
It's Game Show 101. Nerves will make words come out wrong.
Mythological hero H-list.
And the pressure, obviously, can be overwhelming.
Name something a doctor might pull out of a person. Darcy.
A gerbil.
So yeah, laugh it up. At least it's them and not us. Right? Mole, Dalit, Glob, Who wrote this? Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
And that's Global National for this Friday night. I'm Farah Nasser, and on behalf of our whole crew here, I want to thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Tonight's Your Canada is this beaver about to take a dip in the South Saskatchewan River in Saskatoon. We love seeing Your Canada, so please keep emailing us your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Jeff Semple will be at the anchor desk this weekend. Until next week, take care of yourselves and take good care of each other. Good night.